My name is Dr. Robert Zeitlin, and I'm from Philadelphia. And the name of my story is called Superpowers. When I was in preschool, my teachers would call me Robert Zeitlin. I was 3, but I'd correct them. I'd say, no, my name is Robert Harry Zeitlin. Of course, I was 3, so it sounded more like Robert Harry Zeitlin. I was proud that I carried my grandfather's name, Harry. I'd never met him. He died before I was born. We're Jewish, and so you don't name kids after living people. When my wife Betsy and I had our first son, we named him after my father. My son and I have a lot in common. One sad thing we have in common is that we arrived too late, or our grandfathers departed too early. You choose. I know what I choose. My choice is to stay around a while. I can't do anything about the past, but I'm all about changing the future. When I was little, I thought my dad was a superhero. I watched a lot of cartoons, sitting way too close to the TV, eating frosted cherry Pop-Tarts. I'd watch Speed Racer and Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones, but nothing compared with the excitement that I had on Saturday mornings when the world's 4 greatest heroes came on, the Super Friends. My dad was so big and strong that I saw him on the same level as Batman and Superman. He could do amazing things. He could hit a golf ball for a mile. He could swim in the pool that we went, the Olympic-sized pool. He swam under the water the whole way without ever coming up for air. He gave these great hugs, and he could pick my sisters and me up in 2 hands at the same time and throw us around like rag dolls and tickle us until we almost peed. When I grew up, I realized that he was human and he had flaws too. Like a lot of men his age, he wasn't great at handling his emotions. He didn't take great care of himself. He struggled with his weight. And then I got out of college and I had an opportunity to work with him for a while. And for 7 years, we worked together in a small business and a family business. And I got to learn that this flawed man also had some truly special abilities. He was exceedingly generous with everyone in our extended family. He was a great boss. He savored food. Everyone who knew him considered him kind-hearted and easygoing. So when he died in 1994, he left a big gap in my life and in our whole family. And because of his kindness and generosity, the loss really rippled out into the community. 2 years later, I became a dad for the first time, and I was completely out of my element. I felt like an imposter. I was like a diaper-changing mortal. I couldn't have been light years further from being a superhero if I tried. I was so caught up in the fear of doing everything wrong that I almost didn't notice what was happening right in front of me, the amazing time I was having with Betsy and the kids. There'd be times where she was upstairs making dinner, and my job was to be downstairs keeping the kids occupied. But instead of just throwing in a video, we'd be laying train tracks around the living room or playing dress up and making up characters or trying to build block towers to the ceiling. Hours would pass, and we'd just be totally lost in play. And it was also so sweet and tender how beautiful it was when they were little. They were dependent on us for everything. Their little faces turning up to us and saying, please. When we were expecting our second child, our daughter, a friend of mine said, as a parent, your job is to get out of your kids' way and let them become who they're supposed to be. And I thought, getting out of my kids' way is going to mean taking care of my own stuff. So fast forward a couple years later, Betsy comes home. She bursts through the door all excited. She says, I'm taking this class and you have to take it too. She's like, it'd be good for work. It'd be good for the family. It could be good for your stress level. I said, well, what's it on? And she said, mindfulness. And I thought, mindfulness. I'm smart and I'm a devoted husband, so I totally did not take her advice. I waited until it was my idea, and then I signed up for the class. And you know what? I was right. It was a smart move. I learned in that class that mindfulness is being aware in the present moment and not getting too caught up in regrets from the past or worrying too much about the future. And the more I learned, the more I grew, and the more I put a little distance between me and my self-doubt. And I kept learning and I kept reading, and all of a sudden I came across 7 words that changed my life. It was like a Zen Buddhist saying, the kind of thing they put on school counselor posters, with pictures of train tracks or sunflowers. Kind of thing you'd walk by a million times. But for me, it jumped out. It was like treasure hiding in plain sight. It said, what you focus on becomes your reality. What you focus on becomes your reality. I thought. I knew I could make myself miserable by focusing on what I didn't have or where I'd failed. But what if I flipped the script? What if I started focusing on the things that were going right or my strengths? And so I tried it. And you know what? It started to make me happier. And you know what else? I discovered I had superpowers. I had superpowers of persistence and gratitude, enthusiasm and zest for life. I embraced my superpower of curiosity, and I asked that one question that you always hold back on. And so the conversation took a turn, and I led to some deeper connections. I embraced my superpower of courage to start saying yes more and then worrying less about the consequences. And that always put me in uncomfortable situations, usually outside my comfort zone. But I always seemed to learn one thing, and those one things kept stacking up. I remember the moment when I saw that all this work was starting to have an effect on our family. Betsy and I were sitting in our synagogue holding hands, fighting back tears as our kids were up giving their speeches at their confirmations. They were so mature and they had such presence, and we're just swelling with pride. And we look at each other as if to say, how did we get here? And for one, we're very lucky. They're great kids. But we also realized that we'd modeled some things and done some things right. Through tough times, they'd seen us in a partnership where we depended on each other and allowed each other to lean in and move our lives forward in our careers. Our kids had basically grown up in a house where it was normal to chase your dreams. Now, I know our kids are going to grow up and do great things. We're very lucky. We have a high schooler who's winning elections for regional positions. We have a kid in college who's getting on executive boards. But I also remember the lessons I learned on Saturday morning sitting too close to the TV. If our kids are going to change the world, they're not going to be able to do it alone. They're going to need some help. They're going to need some super friends. And that's why my story is about changing my future, but it started to turn into a personal mission to reach out to other parents. I have a friend, Jesse, who said, you can't be the teacher if you stop being the student. So before I depart, which is going to be long after my grandkids arrive, let me assure you, I want you to know my story. You can find the funny in everyday moments. Life is hilarious. You can try and fail and get back up again. Be open to opportunities. Embrace your superpowers. I went from a diaper-changing mortal to putting on my cape and learning to fly. What if right now, this is the beginning of your story? Thank you.